Hello folks, welcome to my YouTube channel once again. So today we shall discuss few ER concepts. Now what are the components that are required for writing an ER diagram? These are the main things that are required for writing any ER diagram in database management system. These concepts are relationship type, relationship sets, roles and structural constraints. My dear friends, what is a relationship type? First of all, before understanding what a relationship type is, we need to understand what is a relationship. Relationship is nothing but it is an association between two entities. Now, for example, E1 is participating in a relationship R1 with D1. E2 is participating in a relationship R2 with D2. E3 once again is participating in a relationship R3 with D1. E4 is participating in a relationship type R4 with D2. E5 is participating in a relationship R5 with D3 and so on. Now we have understood what a relationship is. A relationship is an association between two entities. My dear friends, employee is an entity type, whereas E1, E2, E3, E4, E5, E6, E7, all these are entities or entity sets. Now we have defined what a relationship is. A relationship is nothing but it is an association between two entities. My dear friends, what is the association here? Now I can say employee E1 works for department D1 and employee E2 works for department D2. Employee E3 works for department D1. Now, what is that word relationship type? Whenever I say relationship type, it means it is an association between two entities. Now, my dear friends, you may think, what is that different word that is associating this employee with department? My dear friends, works on is that relationship type. Now, this is a relationship type. It is associating employee and department. In a way, it is connecting employee and department. Hence, I can conclude that works for is a relationship type. Now you have understood what a relationship type is. It is time to understand what is a relationship set. We know what is an entity type. Entity type is employee, whereas entity sets is E1, E2, E3, E4, E5, E6, E7. All these are entity sets. Similarly, this side, department is an entity type. D1, D2, D3, all these are entity set. So similarly here, works for is a relationship type. All these are called as a relationship, or in other words, they can be termed as relationship set. R1, R2, R3, R4, R5, R6, R7 respectively are called as a relationship set. My dear friends, you have understood what is the concept of relationship type and relationship set. Hoping that I will move further. Now, one more concept that comes into picture is roles or role names. Now here, employee is participating in a works for relationship with department. What is the department playing here? Department is playing the role of employer, whereas employee is playing the role of worker. So here, employer is the role name. What this department is doing with this employee? He is employing some employee. He is an employer to some employee. Hence, we can conclude that this department is having a role name employer. Similarly, employee is having a role name worker or just an employee. These are role names. Now we have understood what is a relationship type, what is a relationship set, what is a role name. Next concept is a relationship as attributes. Now we can also make this relationship as attributes. For example, employee works for department. Now I can keep this as an entity and I can take this as department. For example, one department can have many employees. One department can have many employees. Here, department can play the role of attribute for the relationship. Hoping that you have understood these concepts, I will move further. Now, what is degree of relationship? Whenever degree comes into picture, we should understand how many entities are participating in a relationship. My dear friends, remember in the previous slide, in this slide, here employee and department, these are the two entity types that are participating in a relationship type. Hence, the degree of this relationship type is binary relationship type, binary relationship. Now, if I take the next slide, here three entities are participating in a relationship. Hence, the degree of this relationship type is ternary relationship. Ternary relationship. Now we can see here more than two entities are participating in a relationship, respectively supplier, part, and project. And all these are participating in supply relationship. Hence, we can conclude it as ternary relationship. Ternary relationship. My dear friends, I'll be discussing these relationships as attributes in my next class. Keeping that you have understood these concepts, we shall proceed further. So, degree of relationship. If two entities are participating in a relationship, we term it as binary relationship. Whereas if three entities are participating in a relationship, we term it as ternary relationship. Next, hoping that we have understood the degree of relationship, we shall proceed further. What is a recursive relationship? What is recursive relationship? My dear friends, it's very simple here. Here, this is an employee entity. This is an employee entity. What is recursive relationship? Relationship in which one entity type is participating in a relationship type with itself is called as a recursive relationship. My dear friends, you people may confuse thinking that this is one entity and this is one entity. Suddenly, if we look into this diagram, we may feel that this is one entity and this is one entity. But that is not the case. This is an entity and this is a relationship. This supervision is a relationship type. Now, what does this 1 and 2 signify here? Now we can conclude that 1 signifies E1 plays the role of supervisor once, and another time he is playing the role of supervisee or subordinate. Whenever 2 comes into picture, it is nothing but it is entity employee is playing as a subordinate, and 1 comes into picture, employee is playing as a supervisor. So E1 supervisors, and he participating in a relationship R2, even he supervises E2. E2 is a subordinate of E1. So similarly here, E1 is a subordinate of E5, or E5 is a supervisor for E1. Next, E3 is a subordinate of E1. E1 is a supervisor for E3. Now, if you observe carefully, my dear friends, here both employee entity only, there is only one entity. Once the entire entity acts as a supervisor and another time the entity acts as a supervisee or subordinate. Hope you have understood this recursive relationship. Hoping that you guys have understood, I will proceed further. Now, this is very important as far as your examination point of view is considered. Structural constraints on a relationship type. Now, there are two concepts when it comes to structural constraints in a relationship type. My dear friends, remember, this structural constraints on a relationship type is very important question, and it will be asked for 6 to 8 marks in your exams. Structural constraints. Structural constraints. What are structural constraints on a relationship type? There are two things when it comes to structural constraints. First one is cardinality ratio, and the second one is participation constraints. Participation constraints. Now let us understand what cardinality ratio is. Cardinality ratio is nothing but maximum number of relationship an entity is participating. Now, if you take up employee managers department, this is an example for 1:1 relationship. This is an example for 1:1 relationship. How do you say? You may ask, sir, you said 1:1 relationship, but how do you say that? Yes, it's very easy, my dear friends. Now you can see here, E3 can manage only one department. Of course, for one department, there can be only one manager. There can be only one manager. E3 manages only one department. One department can have only one manager. Yes. Is it logical or not? Now think logically, my dear friends. One department can have only one manager. one employee. Now employee acts as a manager here because it is a manager's relationship here. Keep in mind, it is a manager's relationship here. So D1 is having only one manager, that is E3. D1 is having only one manager and E3 manages only one department. Department is having only one manager and employee manages only one department. So D1 is having only one manager. So if you take the D1 is having only one manager. So one department can manage only one department can be managed by only one employee. So here also this side also it is one and this side also it is one. Hence we conclude that it is 1:1. That means, see, here also only one department can participate in a relationship. Maximum only one department can participate. This side also only one employee can participate in a relationship. One employee can manage only one department. So 1:1. One department can be managed by only one employee. And this is how the cardinality ratio 1:1 works, my dear friends. If we have understood what is cardinality ratio 1:1, let us proceed further to understand what is M:1 cardinality ratio. Right. So E1, employee E1 can work on many projects. So this side it is N. One employee can work on many projects. One project can be handled by many employees. Isn't it true, my dear friends? Isn't it true? Yes, of course it's true. One employee can work on many projects and one employee can work on many projects and one project can be handled by many employees. It is 100% true. So this side also it is N, this side also it is N. We define it as M:1 relationship type. This side also it is more than one, that is multiple projects. This side also it is more than one, multiple employees. Many employees can work on one project. Many project can be handled by many, one project can be handled by many employees. So if we look from this side, it is M this side. If we look from this side, it is N this side. Hence we conclude that it is M:1 cardinality ratio. Next example is, hoping that if we have understood whatever I have done now, that is 1:1 relationship and M:1 relationship, next thing that we have to understand is 1:M relationship type, cardinality ratio. So here, one employee can work for only one department. Isn't it true, my dear friends? One employee can work for only one department, 100% true. Can one employee work for many departments? It's not possible. It's not possible. One employee at one time, he can work for only one department. So it is one this side. So one department can have many employees. One department can have many employees. One department can have many employees. So this side also it is M. So it is, I conclude that it is 1:M cardinality ratio. Now we have understood three types of cardinality ratio, that is 1:1, M:1 and 1:M. So all these comes into one category, that is cardinality ratio. So if we have understood cardinality ratio, it is time to go into next concept, that is participation constraints. Participation constraints. My dear friends, what is participation constraints? Participation constraints is nothing but minimum number of relationship where an entity can participate. Now what is the difference between cardinality ratio and participation constraints? Cardinality ratio, remember my dear students, maximum number of relationships an entity can participate. That is nothing but cardinality ratio. Whereas participation constraint is minimum cardinality, minimum number of relationships an entity can participate in. Now here, what is the cardinality ratio? What is the participation constraints? On this side, what is the minimum number of relationships all entities are participating? It is one. It is one. Cardinality ratio is one this side. This side, now we have to look into minimum relationship. What is minimum relationship among three? Now D3 is participating in relationship R5 and R7. It is 2. D2 is participating in a relationship R2 and R4 respectively. D1, so it is 2 here also, 2, 2. So D1 is participating in a relationship R1, R3 and R6 respectively. Here it is 3. So what is the minimum value among 2 and 3? Minimum value among 2 and 3 is 2. So participation constraints on department side is 2. That is minimum cardinality is only to this side. Now if we take up this employee entity type, here what is the minimum cardinality? Of course, minimum cardinality here is 1. You can see all employees are participating in a relationship type. They are participating in at least they are participating in one relationship type. So here department is participating in at least 2 relationship type. Remember, I'm stressing on the word at least here. So here minimum cardinality is 2 and minimum cardinality this side is 1. So this side participation constraint is 1 and this side participation constraint is 2. So similarly, if we take up another example here, now here also what is the minimum cardinality on employee side? Minimum cardinality or participation constraint on employee side here is 1 and minimum cardinality on project side is 1. So it is 1 and 1. Now if we take up this, my dear friends, minimum cardinality here is 0. Minimum cardinality here is 0. So, and minimum cardinality here is 1. Whenever minimum cardinality is below 1, it is called as partial participation. Whenever minimum cardinality is below 1, that is 0. So here employee is participating in a partial relationship, partial participation. Employee's relation participation is partial participation here. Whereas this is total participation because you can see all the departments are participating in a relationship type. Hence it is total participation. Whereas this side it is partial participation. If we take up next diagram here, this is also total participation and this side also it is total participation. If we take up next diagram, this side also it is total participation and this side also it is total participation. And okay, now if we have understood what is cardinality ratio and participation constraints, now if we combine cardinality ratio and participation constraints together, they are called as structural constraints on a relationship type. My dear friends, remember in exam they are going to ask, explain structural constraints on a relationship type for 6 to 8 marks. If they ask, you need to explain with the example diagrams or illustrations. You need to explain this cardinality ratio and participation constraints respectively. Hope you have understood whatever I have done today. Thank you, friends. Thank you. We shall meet in the next class. Thank you so much.